Hi everyone, I'm Gaia and today I will be presenting our work on automated analysis of performance losses in solar cells using explainable artificial intelligence. So let's start with a challenge. Can you find the hidden message in this photo? Yes, it's solar. So in this study, we will take a similar approach, but instead of finding messages in images, we will find hidden patterns in data. So let's put some context into that. In solar cell production lines, the goal is to consistently achieve the highest possible efficiency. However, some cells will deviate from this value. Understanding the underlying patterns of these efficiency losses is key to improving a production line. But identifying these patterns isn't straightforward. There are challenges that come with it. First, several factors can affect the efficiency of solar cells. Some, like the open circuit voltage, has well-known relationships with efficiency, but for many other parameters, expert knowledge is needed, as their relationships are complex and sometimes unknown. This challenge is further compounded by the fact that there are numerous cells to analyze in a production line. Say, for example, you have 8,000 cells produced per hour in your line. That would already mean millions of data points to analyze weekly. And as we take more inline measurements in the future, this number will only increase. So the ultimate goal of this project is to address these challenges by developing an automated approach that can identify the factors contributing to efficiency losses without prior knowledge of their relationships. For this study, the goal is to demonstrate a proof of concept by applying the proposed approach to selected solar cell measurements. Our general framework works as follows. Say you have parameters A, B, and C that are related to X. To identify the hidden patterns in this data, we will need two things: a learner and an interpreter. First, we need the learner to model the relationships of the different parameters with X, and then an interpreter to explain the modeled relationships. And from this, we can gain insights on which parameter had the greatest impact on X. So let's first talk about the learners. Our learners will be based on machine learning models. And for this study, we created two types, one for numerical data and another for image data. For numerical data, we developed an XGBoost classifier, which is a decision tree-based algorithm. And for image data, we developed a CNN classifier to analyze image features. So note that accuracy is very important to ensure that our learners give reliable results. So on top of developing these models on our own, we also fine-tuned and optimized their parameters to enhance performance. So the thing with machine learning models is that they're often called black boxes because it's very challenging to understand how they make decisions. And this is where the interpreter comes in, to explain how the black box operates. And here, our interpreters will be based on explainable artificial intelligence or explainable AI. Each learner gets an interpreter. For numerical data, we use SHAP, which calculates how much each feature adds or subtracts from the model's base prediction. So let's use an example. At some point, we all ask ourselves the big question: should I do a PhD? Say the base probability of doing so is 50%, you then consider the different factors. Oh, I love research, and the dial goes up. Oh, but it's a 4-year commitment, maybe even longer, and the dial drops. But then you remembered it's been your lifelong dream to contribute to saving the world, and the dial shoots up. And just like that, the next thing you know, you're already doing a PhD in solar energy. So SHAP works like this. It tells you how each factor nudges the decision. For image data, we use GradCam, which generates a heat map that highlights the important areas of an image influencing the model's prediction. If the classification is a dog, it will highlight these areas in red or warm colors. And if it's a cat, it will highlight the regions contributing to that classification. And this helps us see which parts of the image the model considered most relevant. So now that we've covered the methods, let's see how they perform with solar cell data. We used the publicly available dataset of 350 multicrystalline silicon solar cells, and these are the following parameters that we looked at. So you have efficiency, lifetime, resistivity, etc. Our XGBoost classifier acted as our learner to model the relationships between the different parameters with efficiency bins, and SHAP acted as our interpreter to determine the impact of each parameter to efficiency loss. So let's look at the results using a SHAP-B's warm plot, and this is the plot for the low efficiency bin. On the x-axis, you have the SHAP value with 0 as the baseline. The y-axis lists the feature, and we only have one in this case, which is lifetime. The farther a point is from 0, the stronger the feature's impact. Positive SHAP values support classification into the bin, while negative SHAP values discourage it. Point colors represent parameter values with blue for low and pink for high. Okay, let's look at the results for lifetime in the low efficiency bin. The blue points represent low values of lifetime, and we notice most of them in the green region, which supports classification into the low efficiency bin. This means low lifetime push predictions toward low efficiency. So this matches known physics, but what's amazing is that the learner learned this on its own without us giving information on the underlying physics. Therefore, it can uncover previously unknown relationships in data. So note that we use lifetime in this case because it's something that we understand and can be used to validate the model, but a similar approach can be applied to make sense of other less familiar parameters too. SHAP can also rank the features according to their impact. This is the plot with the other parameters in the low efficiency bin in this specific dataset. On the y-axis, you have the features in order of their importance. Lifetime is on top and therefore contributes most to low efficiency. Sheet resistance appear lower and therefore has less impact. So how useful are these kinds of insights in production lines? By being able to rank the different parameters, we can prioritize critical ones in production. We can also generate plots across different efficiency bins to analyze global trends. And with these trends established, it becomes easier to identify deviations, allowing us to detect anomalies. So let's look at another interesting application, this time for image data. And here we use 570 simulations of Burke cells. This is an example of a simulated electroluminescence EL image. Dark regions in this image represent defects that are either related to recombination, linked to voltage, or series resistance, RS. Both of these parameters affect the efficiency, but separating these two types of defects is challenging. So, the learner's task for this application is to understand the correlations between image features and the open circuit voltage VOC and image features and RS. Here we use two CNN models as our learners, one to model the relationships between the image features and the global VOC classes, and another one for RS classes. GradCam acted as our interpreter to determine the impact of the image features to parameter losses. So let's jump straight to the results. This is an example of an EL image, and this is the GradCam activation map for a low voltage prediction. So note that features of high importance are highlighted in red or warm colors. And here we can see that this non-uniform recombination pattern is the most significant feature in determining the low voltage prediction. Similarly, for a high RS prediction, it's these dark finger breaks that are the most impactful ones. And note that our models learned these patterns independently, and we didn't need to do any manual defect labeling nor additional measurements to generate these maps. So by being able to understand the correlations between the different image features and the global VOC and RS, we can infer voltage and resistance related defects using only a single EL image. And this capability can be highly valuable in solar cell production. Moreover, we can also average the different activation maps to gain insights on defect patterns. Random defects will tend to cancel out in the average, whereas recurring or systematic ones will be magnified. And this capability helps manufacturers pinpoint whether defects originate from random isolated events or systematic issues in production lines. So to summarize, we used learners to model the relationships in the data and interpreters to explain these relationships. With this, we demonstrated that our approach can automatically infer relationships between parameters without needing prior physical knowledge. With SHAP and GradCam, we can rank the impact of different solar cell parameters and image features in relation to performance losses. So note that this is just one part of a much bigger puzzle. By being able to address the challenges of big data handling, our approach can be extended to a broader range of parameters. Beyond end-of-line measurements, it can be applied to in-situ data and even environmental conditions. Moreover, our image-based approach can be applied to any scenario where an image and the target parameter are available. Thank you for listening. I'd like to thank ACDC for their support and Arena and ACAP for funding our work.